How's it going, guys? In this video, I'm going to show you how to disassemble your cycloid, clean the pivots, re-lubricate, and replace any of the lock nuts or hex pockets if need be. So to begin, I'm going to take the 2mm hex driver that came with the Balisong, and I'm just going to unscrew the handle here. All right, I can just pull the pivot out and boom, the safe handle is disassembled from the pivots. So to clean this, the first thing I would do is recommend that you not take the race washers that are set in the blade out of the blade. Keep these in the blade. So the way I'm going to clean this is I'm just going to take a cloth or a paper towel and I'm just going to push it firmly into the race washer and twist until I don't see any gunk. And if there's any paper towel debris that gets on the nylon due to the somewhat abrasive nature of the nylon texture, you can just wipe that off with your finger. And I'm going to do both sides here. Another thing I do recommend doing, if you want to be extra thorough, is 91% isopropyl alcohol. Put that on your cloth, and you can clean. Don't be alarmed if you get a little black from the black dye of the blade on your cloth, not a big deal. And then we'll just dry out the pivots again. And then I'm going to visually inspect to make sure there's no debris, gunk, cloth leftovers in the race washer. Make sure it's nice and clean. That looks good. If you just want to do a very quick clean, you can repeat the procedure on the race washers that popped out of the handles. I'm going to just twist here on the paper towel. If you wanted to be, and then of course the bearings, I like to run them through my finger to make sure that they rotate freely. This one does rotate freely, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you how to clean it anyway. Got this little Tupperware, pour a little bit of 91% IPA in, and I'm just going to dump the bearings and the race washers that came from the handles, leaving the race washers in the blade there. I don't want to take those out. And I'll switch this around a bit. And I'll pull them out and I'll just dry them off. We don't want to cause any oxidation. And I'm just cleaning the washer here. It's important that you fully clean and dry off the raceway. The raceway being the grooved side. So I'm just gonna dry that, clean that by twisting my towel and pushing firmly. And you'll know it's clean when it comes away from your cloth and there's no black gunk. Now these bearings that I'm cleaning, they were actually clean already. So that's not why you're not seeing anything. And then the bearings, what I'll do is I'll separate my cloth. I'll throw the bearing in there, just like so, and I'm just gonna rub it between my fingers, occasionally moving it around, making sure I dry it off. We want to get every last bit of moisture off of this. And then I'll run it between my fingers to make sure there's nothing sticking, and I'll repeat that procedure for the other bearing. I want to emphasize this is a full deep clean, so if you want to be meticulous about it, this is what you would do. If you're in a rush for whatever reason, you can skip the dunking and IPA part, unless your bearings are really squeaking or something. All right, this bearing is dry. and it rotates freely. So now what I'm gonna do is reassemble. But first, we're gonna lubricate. I like to use 10 weight nano oil on the Cycloid. If you don't have lubricant, you can run it dry, but it will function better with some type of lubricant. I don't recommend any lubricant with like graphene additives or dry lubricant for this. You really want like a lightweight oil-based lubricant. So like nano oil, super lube, KPL, anything like that's fine. If you have like hops number 9 gun oil, Daiwa reed oil, mineral oil, like that's better than nothing. So use what you have, but I don't recommend you put anything like graphene based in here. All right, so I'm actually just gonna add a dab, just a small drop. That was actually far too much. You can see it just kind of squirted out. So I'm gonna soak most of that up, just leaving this thin film. That looks good. And I'll flip it over and I'll do the other race washer, just a drop. That looks good. And now we're gonna reassemble. Actually, first I'm gonna show you if you need to replace any of the lock nut parts, you can just pop them out from the other side with your hex key. It'll just pop out. So if you find that over time you need to tighten your Cycloid more frequently, one or both of these parts may have worn out. So I'm going to show you how to replace them. What I'll do is I'll take some thin pointy object and I'll put it inside of here and I'll just lever out the hex nut. And if you have an extra hex nut, you can replace it here. Extra hex nuts and extra pockets. Mine actually function fine, so I'm not going to replace it, but you can find replacements of both of these parts on the website if you do need to replace it. And what I'll do is, you can see the lock nut has a top and a bottom. The top is narrower and it has this nylon ring, and then the bottom is wider, just has threads, no nylon ring. So I'm going to put it face down, the nylon ring pointed down so that the wider hex looking part is facing up. And I'm just going to, with the hole facing down here, the larger hole, I'm just going to press the hex pocket on top and it should just snap into place. And pretending that this is a new fresh set, which I don't actually need, I just make sure that the sort of pointy oval end is aligned with the bottom, pointed towards the bottom of the handle. You can see it's not a perfect circle. And I'll align the pointy end with the pointy end and I'll just push it in and it'll snap into place. All right, now we're ready to reassemble. I'm going to insert the pivot. I'm going to gently pry the two handle slabs, the channel apart, very gently with my thumb. I'm going to take one of the race washers that fell out of the handles and I'm going to have it with the raceway facing up. I'm going to just put it on that pivot. And then I'm going to take one of the bearings. Each bearing has a smooth side and then this open caged side. We're always going to have the smooth side facing the blade. So with the smooth side facing up, I'm going to put that on the pivot. Now it's time to take the blade, which has both race washers that we just lubricated. And I'm going to put that in. I'm going to take the other bearing and with the smooth side facing down, because we want the smooth side of the bearing facing the blade, I'm going to pop that on the pivot. And then we've got the last race washer here with the raceway, the grooved section facing down towards the bearing and the flat side facing up towards the handle. I'm just going to insert that, hook that onto the pivot, and then I'm going to retighten. You may need to apply some friction on the hex nut here. You can see I'm doing that with my finger. And I'm just going to retighten until I feel like a resistance, a medium resistance. I would not consider this a free handle swing. I'm feeling some resistance. You can see I over tightened it a little bit, so I'm going to loosen it a bit and then repeat that test. That feels a lot nicer. Very smooth swing. I'm just going to do this a few times to distribute the lubricant around the bearings and the race washers. The lubricant serves two purposes. It not only makes the swing smoother, but it protects the chrome steel bearings and race washers from oxidation, rust. So that's why I don't recommend running this dry. It'll reduce the lifespan of the bearing system. So any oil you have that's not like food-based, which will go rancid, is fine. So don't put olive oil in there. Use mineral oil, reed oil. If you have yo-yo or Rubik's Cube oil, that's fine. Super lube, nano oil, KPL. Pretty much anything except stuff that has like additives such as like graphene, which will just gunk up the bearings, and food-based oils, which will go rancid. And all right, so that's good. I'm gonna just check for play. I've got no pivot play. I just have a little bit of plastic flex, but everything feels very tight. I'll do a play test. And again, I've got some plastic flex, but no pivot play. Everything feels rock solid. All right, handle swing is good. And now if you wanted to do the other handle, you would just repeat that exact same procedure with the other handle. All right, you've just disassembled, reassembled, and done some maintenance on your Cycloid HD. And everything I said here also applies to the regular Cycloid. All right, thanks for watching, guys.